Liberal Snot refused to remove feet from seat for elderly to sit. LAPD teaches her painful lesson. It was just another day on the train until an entitled woman broke the rules and learned a life lesson the painful way. If you've ever been on a train, bus, or any form of public transportation, then you understand the unwritten rules of how to keep your feet and bags off the seat. If an older adult, someone injured, pregnant woman, or anyone who needs a seat walks by and you have bags or feet taking up a second or third seat, then you're breaking an ethical and moral code of humanity by not allowing them to sit down. In this case, the moral and ethical code of humanity was not only an unwritten rule of civilized and nice people but also a legitimate rule on this particular train, in which an incident broke out because a woman failed to follow the rules and was angry that she received a consequence for it. Rules are made to be followed. Rules are made to be broken, but breaking the rules comes with consequences, and Bethany Nava learned that the hard way. She was riding a Metro Red Line train when she broke a specific rule and was forced to get off the train car. The rule explicitly stated as in the Metro Customer Code of Conduct and says placing feet or shoes on seats or furnishings is prohibited disorderly conduct, which may be penalized with a warning and/or ejection from the train. Nava was warned and given a directive. Nava refused to comply. Nava was ejected. Case closed? Not so fast. The officer from the LAPD who advised her by telling her to get off, but she refused to listen, so he then ejected her and is now facing an investigation. Hopefully, the investigation is the protocol for an incident in which the suspect, or rule breaker, file a complaint or the incident finds itself in the news. An investigation has begun after a Los Angeles police officer was filmed dragging a woman off of the city's subway for refusing to take her feet off the seat. Anyone with a decent amount of logic and common sense would tell you that this is a case-closed investigation. Nava, who is 18 years old, was given a warning, direction by an officer of the law and failed to comply. Per the rules of the train, she was granted both the warning, direction to get off, and then faced her unfortunate ejection. We must remind people that rules are to be enforced and no one is special, not even a prissy teenage girl is above the law. Daily Mail reported more on the LAPD train ejection incident. The officer can be heard saying, "I already told you what to do and you didn't. You disobeyed me. You're getting off the train." He then begins pulling her by the arm, as she begins shouting, "I paid to be on this train and you're pulling me off the train, I can't get my stuff." At the start of the video, the police officer asks the Bethany Nava to leave the train and eventually begins to pull her arm. As the officer continues to pull her, she says, "Stop, let me go," before she is eventually dragged off and pinned against the platform wall by the officer. "This is not FG fair that you took me off the train because I had my foot there because I was comfortable like that," she said. "There is no law that tells me that I cannot sit that way because I paid to be in there," but the officer replied, "It's the rules of the train." Here is the video. It may not be the law of the land, but there is a rule in the train's code of conduct. She can frankly refer to that as needed, preferably before she rides the train again. It seems like she just didn't want to listen to an officer of the law when given a directive. That's the problem with today's youth and the overall attitude towards police officers. My taxes pay to keep erratic people like her in order. She should have listened to the police officer, then made a complaint if she feels what happened was not right. This would have avoided her being forcefully ejected and no one would have made a scene or potentially delayed a train from departing at the appropriate time. Her entitlement reeks of mentally dense liberalism. Daily Mail continued reporting on the incident and mentioned a bystander who sounds exceptionally racist and curses at the officer. The bystander is named Selena Lechuga. She's 22 years old, likes to hurl expletives at police officers, and possibly likes long walks on the beach. Thankfully, she was handcuffed as well. She has no idea what happened on the train before she began watching, and she just wants to make herself feel important by throwing her 2 cents worth of swear words at the police. Meanwhile, a small group of bystanders gather, including a woman, later identified by LAPD as 22-year-old Selena Lechuga, who can be heard shouting expletives at the officer. "Are you FG kidding me? You really have nothing to do," Lechuga says. The two women continue to remonstrate with the officer on the platform, with Lechuga accusing the officer of picking on Nava to meet his monthly arrest quota. Eventually, about half a dozen other officers arrive and Lechuga, who continues swearing, and Nava are both handcuffed and taken into custody. This is racism. This is what we are 2018, Ms. like this want to just try to act like they can do whatever they want. "FK you guys," said Lechuga, who also appears to spit at an officer. "This is not what racism looks like. This is what not following the rules looks like." Lechuga's behavior is very uncivilized and animalistic as she reportedly spits at a police officer. That is ultimately grimy in every way possible. She had nothing to do with the situation at hand and just wants to join the victim club and get herself all riled up for nothing. Putting her in handcuffs was the best possible thing an officer of the law could do. If this were the 80s, then she would have taken a knee to the back of the head and cops would have said she fell. But this officer is in 2018 thanks to the girl for reminding us, and he's just doing the job that we taxpayers want him to do. There was no need for Lechuga to get herself involved and handcuffed for her inappropriate behavior and disgusting projection of spit upon an officer of the law. It was later reported that the officer might have explicitly said, "You're going to remove your foot or you're getting off the train." If that's what he said, then there was entirely nothing wrong with that. If the girl refused to remove her foot from the seat, as per the train rules, then her ejection was 100% appropriate, and the cop was merely doing his job. Another cop does his job and gets investigated for it because the liberally diseased people feel as though their entitlement allows them to be above the law. We should remind people that no one is above the law. Not putting your feet on the seat of public transportation should be a norm that everyone with some moral compass can figure out. It should require a rule book and a police officer to teach this girl some manners. Get your feet off the seat or face ejection.